The Grand Council chamber stretched across 3 levels of crystalline architecture, where representatives from 40 species gathered in perfect silence, and nobody moved when Empress Zalara entered because even breathing felt dangerous in her presence, and the towering figure glided forward with skin that shimmered like liquid mercury under the pale blue lights. Her reputation preceded her arrival, and everyone knew the stories about entire star systems that fell under her command within days, and how she crushed rebellions with a single glance and negotiated treaties that left opposing parties trembling and grateful at once, because refusal meant consequences. Nobody wanted to imagine, and the galaxy bent to her will like grass before a storm. Katie Monroe stood in the corner with her cleaning cart and watched the proceedings while her worn uniform marked her as invisible to these powerful beings. And she had snuck into the upper gallery after finishing the maintenance corridors because her mother always said knowledge was worth more than credits. And besides, the council sessions were more interesting than scrubbing floors in empty hallways. The human delegation sat rigid in their assigned section, and their ambassador wore his formal robes with obvious discomfort, while he clutched his prepared statement with white knuckles, because Earth wanted a trade agreement for medical supplies, and the planet desperately needed access to advanced healing technology that could save millions of lives from the plague spreading through the colonies. Zalara settled onto her raised platform, and her 4 eyes surveyed the room with predatory calculation. And when she spoke, her voice carried without amplification through the vast space and made the walls vibrate with harmonic resonance that humans felt in their bones like distant thunder, rolling across mountains before lightning strikes. The first petition came from the Krill Consortium, and their speaker approached, with all 16 legs trembling, and presented documents regarding mining rights in the Outer Rim territories, and Zalara reviewed them in silence for exactly 30 seconds before declining with a single word that sent the speaker scuttling backward. In obvious relief at surviving the encounter, Katie watched delegation after delegation approach and fail, and some left with minor concessions, while others departed with nothing but their dignity barely intact. And the pattern became clear that Zalara granted favors based on calculations nobody else could follow, and her decisions seemed arbitrary, except they never were, because she always gained something valuable, even when appearing generous. The human ambassador rose when his turn came, and walked to the presentation area on shaking legs, and he began his rehearsed speech about mutual benefit, and shared prosperity, and humanitarian concerns, and how Earth offered raw materials in exchange for technology that would ease suffering. Across multiple worlds, Zalara listened without expression, and her mercury skin rippled occasionally with colors that might indicate thought or boredom or contempt, and nobody could read her alien features well enough to guess. And when the ambassador finished, she remained silent for so long that people wondered if she had fallen asleep with her eyes open, though nobody dared suggest it. Finally, she spoke and said that Earth had nothing she wanted, and their resources were common in their technology. Primitive, and their desperate need made them poor negotiators, and she saw no reason to engage in trade with species who brought weakness to the table instead of strength. The ambassador tried to argue and mentioned humanitarian obligation and the value of future relationships and how Earth would remember this kindness, but Zalara cut him off with a gesture and told him that sentiment had no place in galactic commerce, and memory was worthless without power to back it, and Earth should return when they had something real to offer. Katie felt anger rise in her chest because her mother was dying from the same plague the ambassador mentioned, and thousands more suffered in the colonies, while this empress sat on her throne of power and rejected help that would cost her nothing. And suddenly her feet moved before her brain caught up, and she was walking down the gallery steps with her heart pounding. Guards noticed her movement and reached for weapons, but hesitated because she was obviously just a cleaner and unarmed, and her youth made her seem harmless, and by the time they decided to act, she had already crossed half the chamber floor and was approaching the presentation area where the ambassador stood frozen in. Shocked, Zalara turned her attention to this interruption, and her 4 eyes focused on Katie with the weight of entire fleets behind them, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees, and everyone held their breath because they were about to witness either a miracle or an execution, and neither seemed likely to be pleasant. Katie stopped at the designated speaking distance and looked up at the towering empress and forced her voice to stay steady, even though her hands shook, and she said that she wanted to make an offer, and Zalara could have Earth's medical research data from the last century, including breakthrough treatments that humans developed for diseases similar to what other species suffered. The Empress tilted her head and asked why a cleaner was negotiating for humanity, and Katie replied that she was not negotiating for anyone except herself and her mother and the people she knew who were dying, and she had access to the research archives because her mother worked in the medical records department before getting sick. Zalara studied her with new interest and asked what Katie wanted in return, and Katie said she wanted enough healing technology to treat one ship full of patients, and the Empress could keep everything else and sell it to other species for whatever price she demanded, and Earth would probably never even know the data was gone. The chamber erupted in whispers because this human child had offered the Empress exactly what she valued most, which was exclusive access to something useful and the ability to profit from it repeatedly, while the original owners remained ignorant, and it was the kind of cunning deal that Zalara herself might have proposed. Katie continued and said that she would deliver the data personally and answer any questions about its application and help adapt it for non-human biology, and she had studied enough to be useful, and her mother taught her how to read medical files before the illness took away her strength. Zalara was silent for a long moment, and her skin rippled through several colors before settling on a deep purple that apparently indicated consideration, and then she laughed, and the sound was like crystal bells mixed with grinding stone, and everyone felt their spines straighten involuntarily at the unexpected noise. The Empress said that Katie had more sense than the entire human delegation combined, and understood that power lay not in begging, but in offering something the other party could not refuse, and she accepted the deal with one condition, which was that Katie would remain as her personal liaison for all future Earth negotiations. Katie agreed without hesitation, because one ship full of medicine was still more than Earth had 5 minutes ago, and besides, working for an Empress sounded more interesting than pushing a cleaning cart through empty corridors, and maybe she could negotiate more deals. Once she proved her value, Zalara stood and declared, the session concluded, and told Katie to report to her flagship within the hour and bring whatever belongings she valued, because she would not be returning to Earth anytime soon, and the human delegation sat stunned as their lowly janitor became the most powerful human in the galaxy by accident. Katie walked back through the chamber and grabbed her cleaning cart out of habit, and the ambassador tried to speak to her, but she ignored him because he had his chance and failed, while she had her mother to save and a ship to catch and no time for people who negotiated from weakness. The medical transport left 3 days later with enough technology to treat 5,000 patients, and Katie's mother was on it, along with others from the colonies, and Earth's government tried to claim credit for the deal, but everyone knew the truth that their Empress-appointed liaison had accomplished what their trained diplomats could not. Katie stood on the bridge of Zalara's flagship and watched stars stream past, and the Empress taught her about power and negotiation, and how to read the subtle signs that different species displayed when they lied or feared or desperately wanted something they pretended to reject. Months passed, and Katie brokered 17 deals between Earth and various alien powers, and each one benefited humanity more than the last, because she learned quickly, and Zalara was a demanding teacher who accepted nothing less than perfection and rewarded success with knowledge that made Katie more formidable. Other species began requesting her specifically as mediator for difficult negotiations because she combined human unpredictability with Zalara's ruthless efficiency, and she was 19 years old and controlled access to the most powerful being in known space, and nobody dared dismiss her anymore. The galaxy learned that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room was not the one with the most guns or the biggest fleet, but the one who understood that power came from knowing what others wanted and being willing to offer it at the right price. And Katie Monroe had learned that lesson from the best teacher possible. Earth prospered, and the colonies expanded, and humanity took its place among the greater powers, and they owed it all to a janitor's daughter who walked onto a council floor with nothing but courage and common sense, and changed everything because she refused